Always be nice to your neighbors by Christine Druga. When someone asks you about your dream home, how do you respond? It might be an apartment in a big city, a big house on a farm, or if you're like me, a cozy house with a picket fence in the suburbs. My wife and I moved into my dream home about 5 years ago. It's located in a tiny town, one of those places where everyone knows everyone and no one locks their doors. About 30 minutes drive from the city. We thought we found the perfect place. We were so wrong. You see, the thing about people is that you never really know them. It's common in towns like this and everywhere really to come across people who seem like the nicest and most normal human beings on the planet, but who are different monsters behind closed doors. Usually it's nothing more than hidden alcoholism or drug use, a secret affair or domestic abuse, but even Jeffrey Dahmer seemed like an okay guy, and we all know what skeletons were in his closet and in his fridge. The weirdness started a few months ago when our new neighbor moved in next door. He kept to himself and did not talk to anyone except for the occasional visitor from out of town. They were a catalyst for rumors. I had heard that he was a drug dealer, that he had been in and out of prison, and that he had been cut off from his family for unspeakable acts. He was quiet and a little creepy, but he seemed okay to me. Apparently, I'm an idiot. A couple of weeks ago, my sister was leaving my house late at night. She noticed that her car's roof light was on. You know, the one on the inside. Someone had just been in there, it seemed. She ran back in to alert me. I walked her back out and took a look around to see if I could find the intruder. We heard footsteps on my neighbor's porch but could not actually see anyone. I called out but I received no response. The next day I spoke with another neighbor about the incident to warn him to lock his car at night. The neighbor told me that he had spotted someone in the bushes across from his house 2 weeks prior. He chased the person to the house next to mine before he lost the guy. A few days after the chase, someone broke an upstairs window trying to get into his house while he and his family slept. The whole neighborhood was freaked out and we had our suspicions that the new guy was the culprit. But we had no proof. No one had been able to see his face when he was busted. No one could say whether he was chased to his house or if the person running was simply hiding on his porch or in his yard. Local police agreed to increase patrols in our area and things quieted down for a while. That is until this past weekend. It was late on Saturday around midday when I heard what sounded like power tools running. There's a house nearby being renovated by the family who lives there, so I assumed they were finishing a project before turning in or something. I did not really care until 45 minutes later when I saw flashing lights outside my window. I went out to see 3 police cars, an ambulance, and a small crowd gathered in front of the house next door. No one seemed to know what the hell was going on for once. The only information that I could gather was that an old lady who lives a few doors down had called the police to file a noise complaint when the sound of the tools woke her up. I had been standing with the crowd for about 5 minutes before the officers came outside to move us away and rope off the house with crime scene tape. The coroner's van showed up shortly after. It wasn't until the next day that we finally got the story. 2 officers responded to the noise complaint. They could hear the tools running inside, but no one answered the door when they knocked. One of the officers looked into a window and noticed a pool of blood on the living room floor. They called for backup and entered the house. My next-door neighbor had killed some poor woman and dragged her down into his basement. He was using the power saw to cut her up into pieces. When the police entered the basement, he panicked and used the saw to end his own life, Apparently, he almost completely decapitated himself. As gruesome as the details of this heinous act was, the murder-suicide wasn't the thing that caused the most unrest in our little town. He had a large, hand-drawn map of the town hanging in his basement. Each house was drawn as an empty square, and each square had notes written inside. How many people lived in the house, whether or not they had dogs, and the best time and place to enter the home undetected. He also had a stack of photos on the table near the map. He had taken pictures of every house on our street, some at night, some during the day, some from outside, and some from within.